Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council not work session. This is our regular meeting for Monday, November the 8th, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Here.
Councilmember Barber?
Present.
Councilmember Berenson?
Present.
Councilmember Burke?
Present.
Councilmember Circo?
Present.
Councilmember Holman?
Present.
Councilmember Townsend?
Present.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Present.
Mayor Turnbow?
Present. We have a quorum. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have no presentations and awards tonight, but we do have a personal appearance. We have with us this evening a Catherine Smedley of 128 North Crest Drive. She'd like to address the council this evening. Ms. Smedley, if you'd please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, please.
My name is Catherine Smedley. I live at 128 North Crest Drive here in Raymore, Missouri. I apologize. When I looked into doing this and I was told about being put on the agenda, no one told me I only had 5 minutes. This has been an ongoing issue directly behind my home for 14 months, and I think that 5 minutes just doesn't justify the information I need to present tonight. This has been an ongoing issue with loud noises on top of trucks, motorcycles, street race cars with souped up engines coming and going at all hours of the day and night directly behind my home. I have tried my best to do many things to kind of find a solution to this problem. It has deeply affected my daughter and I. I have a daughter that when this began, she was 10, she's now 11, and this has just been an ongoing problem. I have had numerous contact with the police department. I've made over 40 calls for service about peace disturbances since August of 2020. This has deeply impacted our life. The way the city code is written and what I've been told by officers is that they cannot enforce the noise disturbance if they don't hear it. That is not working at all. 5 citations were issued by the police department between August 2020 to February 2021. Those were issued at 3 a.m., 11:22 p.m., to 16 a.m., to 18 a.m., and 11:40 p.m. Since February, no tickets have been issued by the police department. This is affecting my family in the fact that it is causing a lack of sleep in my daughter because she's being woke up in the middle of the night, which has led to behavior issues not only at school, but also at home to her being grumpy because she's so tired. She has even fallen asleep at school, and that simply just is not acceptable. This has also led to worsening of medical conditions that I have, as well as development of new medical conditions like anxiety and high blood pressure that now have to be treated because of this. I'm living my life about 50% of the time sleep deprived. Anywhere from 2 to 4 nights a week, this goes on behind my home, waking my daughter up, keeping us up, and at times it takes hours to fall back asleep. I pulled up some information from the sleepfoundation.org that states that chronic sleep deprivation can contribute to a wide range of health problems. Different things such as cardiovascular disease and problems, immunodeficiency. I already have kind of a messed up immune system. I have 3 autoimmune diseases that this has increased dramatically. I live with chronic pain because of it, and then I can't sleep. I have had to be put on sleeping meds that, because I am a single mother and have a child to take care of, I will only go on light meds that I will be able to wake up in case of an emergency, like a fire, so I can safely get my child out of my home. This also can lead to hormonal abnormalities. Unfortunately, I'm going through early menopause, and this has certainly worsened all my symptoms that I have from that. I'm now on medications to treat hot flashes that I never had to take before, but my hot flashes over the course of this 14 past months have quadrupled, so they had to put me on meds. Obviously, I already have an issue with pain with my autoimmune diseases. I have a rare autoimmune type arthritis, and I have to go to the hospital to receive an infusion to treat that. I do that every 6 weeks. I spend 4 hours in the infusion center. This has led to serious anxiety as well. When you can't sleep and you have a child to take care of and you're dealing with all the other complications that have come along with this, it doesn't make it any easier. The things I've done to resolve these complaints and try to get some closure to this and get some help with this situation is I contacted the business manager first. That was one of the things I did, and I spoke to him, and he told me, well, I don't know what you expect me to do about it. I asked him, can you please speak to these people? Can you send an email, put a notice up, asking them to be quieter at night, be respectful of the people that live directly behind the storage units? Our homes were there before these storage units were built. He said he would do it, but that didn't seem to do any help whatsoever. I've reached out to my codes enforcement officer, Drayton Vogel. I've spoken with him several times. He has done what he could do to help me with this situation. He has been in contact with Captain Wilson at the police department, and he's done what he could from his side. He can't enforce something that's happening in the middle of the night because he's not at work. I have contacted City Councilwoman Sonia. I apologize, I don't want to butcher your name.
Ms. Smedley, you've exceeded your 5 minutes, but if you could just wrap it up with a couple of sentences, please, the point that you're trying to make.
The point is, there's got to be more that can be done about this. The city chose to put these storage units behind our homes, and now it's become a problem. Not only that, but they're not maintaining their property, which has led to snakes in our backyards, which our children have been scared to play in the backyard. I contacted Drayton, he took care of that. But something needs to happen to change this because we're living sleep deprived all the time. It's causing serious complications for my daughter as well.
All right. Well, thank you for letting us know. We'll be in touch with staff to see what other remedies can be taken other than what they've done so far. It's my understanding you've been working with Lieutenant Abdelgawad quite a bit on this.
Yes, I just spoke with him recently. Our first contact was just at the end of October.
Okay.
I will say one more thing if I could. Drayton Vogel sent letters out for 2 violations for them. I contacted the company that owns that property, and the district area manager for this area knew nothing about this going on. Okay. He has sent notice to the tenants that they will be put out if it doesn't stop.
Okay.
And it has quieted down in that sense, but I still deal with loud diesel engines, race cars, motorcycles racing in and out and waking me up throughout the night.
Okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Looking at the calendar of the boards and commissions regarding development activity that's coming up, on November 16th, our Board of Adjustment will meet at 6 o'clock. We have a variance request for a property at 513 Regina Court. Then at 7 o'clock that evening is our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. They'll hold a public hearing on the request for a preliminary plat for the remainder of the Knoll Creek subdivision development. They'll also hold a public hearing on rezoning of 2 lots, 2 undeveloped lots in Lemoore Estates, currently zoned R1. The request is to reclassify the zoning to R2, which is what the zoning actually initially was. Got changed to R1, now they're requesting to go back to R2. That's for lots 7 and 10 in Lemoore Estates. And then they'll consider the 34th Amendment to the Unified Development Code. That was a matter that they heard previously, and it's coming back for final consideration by the commission. On December 7th, our Planning Commission has several items. They'll have a public hearing for a request by a property owner at 16119 Kentucky Road. This would be for creating an event center. They have it's an acreage property. They have a large barn, and they're considering converting that to create an event center on the property. We'll have the final plat for Sendera, their first and second final plats. That's the development of Summit Homes down off of Hubach Hill Road. And then Watermark has filed their site plan for the apartment community south of Sam's Club for that same evening. And just one other item, there was a good neighbor meeting scheduled for this Wednesday for the Timber Trails mixed-use development. So Jake Lovelace, representing Griffin Riley, proposing to develop the acreage around Benton House, so at the northwest corner of Johnston Drive and Dean Avenue. He's looking to purchase all that land for a mixed-use development. We had a good neighbor meeting scheduled for Wednesday, and it was going to go to Planning Commission on the 16th, but Mr. Lovelace has placed a hold on that, so we will reschedule that. I wanted to make sure the Ward 1 representatives knew that. We have re-notified the neighbors of the cancellation, and just wanted to make mention of that this evening. But that will be coming back, just a short delay, so he can finish his pre-planning work on the property. So that concludes staff report.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carteret. Any questions, Mr. Carteret? Mr. Holman?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carteret, as usual, very thorough, good report. Thank you for that. I was just curious if we have any time of estimated date on the demolition of the old Golden Corral for the new Whataburger, and it looks like the Source has done quite a bit of finish work. I didn't know if we had a estimated date for their opening.
So on the Golden Corral, the property owner has secured a demolition permit. We are requiring fencing to go around the property as part of the redevelopment of that property. And my understanding in talking with the Whataburger folks is they want to secure all the permits. So we're doing final building plan, construction plan review. Once they have the building permit in hand, then I believe they will move forward, because then they know with demolition they can just continue right into building construction. So I anticipate the permit can be issued within a couple of weeks for final review. On the Source, the medical marijuana dispensary, they've had a certificate of occupancy for several weeks now from the city. So they met all the city requirements. I know they were going through final inspections that are required from the state on opening. So I don't have a date, though, at this point.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Carteret, the Lemoore Estates lots, are they going from platted to have, this is maybe going back to maybe 2014 in my brain. Was that the same units that they wanted to go from single units to duplexes and we denied it back then, or is this?
It is not. These are different lots. So the island, if you would, that's right there, Joanne and Kreisel Drive. The initial developer had them, the entire area of the island zoned for a duplex. He couldn't get a design of a duplex that would fit on the property. The current property owner does have one, and so he's looking to rezone it back to the R2 to allow the two duplex units, but it's not the same as a 2014 request.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Before I start on my report tonight, I'm going to talk about the license plate reader. I know people are excited to hear about that, and the poll camera as well. I would like to recognize some of our folks, Chris McGovern, Lieutenant Ali Abdelgawad, and Officer Gary Cochran, who will be receiving the Bronze Award for the Awards for Valor this Friday for their successful and safe handling of an individual who was having a mental health crisis, and they were able to negotiate with her and get her to safety and get her some treatment, and they will be recognized this Friday at the Awards for Valor with the Bronze Award. So I did want to let you all know about that, because I'm really proud of all them and their handling of that. In the special training, I know that Allie was in front of you all not long ago talking about crisis intervention, and that's just another example of, how we're able to help our community and negotiate through those situations and bring them to a safe conclusion. So I did want to share that with y'all. Again, I want to talk about the license plate reader. It was affixed to car 11 earlier this year, but didn't go into full service until May of this year. And I want to give you just a little bit of background about the reason for that. There were considerable challenges that were encountered in making that license plate reader operational. Just, for your information, agencies are required to have a minimum number of cameras in order to have access to the HIDA database. So if you're familiar with HIDA, it's the High Intensity Drug Traffic Area, and that's the national database that, we were looking to have access to, and we didn't meet that requirement. We didn't have enough cameras here as we were starting into the program to meet that requirement. And so locating and partnering with an agency for that access proved to be incredibly difficult for us as we were looking at agencies, here, and one of the agencies we attempted to partner with, was having just as much difficulty, working their way through that process, and actually didn't notify us they'd been accepted by HIDA, and then the installer of that equipment actually was trying to get us connected, with a couple of agencies that met the HIDA requirement for the number of cameras, but they didn't have boundaries contiguous to us, and so it didn't make a whole lot of sense to partner with some of those agencies that were not, here close to Raymore. And so, we didn't use those agencies as well. And so finally, in May of this year, we partnered with Grandview PD, and thanks to Chief Charlie Eisman, who was able to provide us that connection to HIDA, because obviously it doesn't do us any good for the license plate reader to read all those license plates if there's no database for it to be hitting off of with the license plates that it's viewing. And so the approval from HIDA was received for Raymore to partner with them, and we have since, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute, we now actually have enough cameras that we're able to do this on our own. So we could actually sponsor another smaller agency if that came to fruition. But I would like to share with you, some of the things that have happened, even though the camera has been kind of up and down for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you those as well. We recovered 5 stolen license plates with the corresponding prosecution of the individuals who are in possession of those stolen license. We recovered a stolen auto, and it was interesting because the LPR actually hit on the stolen license plate that was stolen out of Raytown, and then the investigating officer determined that stolen license plate was actually on a stolen car that had been stolen out of Independence. And during their investigation, they also revealed some stolen license plates out of Arkansas, and then a considerable amount of evidence that showed that there was credit card fraud that was happening, and then possession of some controlled substances. So that yielded 3 arrests as a result of the LPR, finding that stolen license plate. Recovered stolen license plates from Belton and made 2 arrests, a suspended driver's license, and individuals with multiple warrants, and then other incidents of hits on license plates where the individuals in the vehicle had warrants as well. So it's working. Part of the reason that it's been, sort of hit and miss with that, the functionality problems were traced to a drain on the power when we went live with our body cameras. And so for some reason, the IT folks were having kind of a hard time figuring out why, it seemed like that car and that system, was always down. And so I think, we've finally figured that out. But then, as I mentioned, having another license plate reader through the generosity of a citizen who learned about Raymore through 9/11 Custom, who is the installer of that equipment, was looking to donate. And the folks at 9/11 Custom told him about Raymore, and he was very impressed with what we do. He actually came over and visited with us and has donated another system to us, which we've now installed on car number 1. So we have car number 11 and car number 1 both have license plate readers on them as well, and they're both fully operational. So I think we've figured that out. And just to give you an idea of what those systems do, in the past 7 days, both cars together have read close to 13,000 license plates, just as they're constantly hitting on everything that they see. So we do have that second system up and operational now, thanks to the generosity of a citizen who donated. And a system like that's probably, what, $20,000 or so, and has donated that system to us, to the foundation. So has donated that system to the foundation. And then I wanted to talk about the poll cameras just really briefly. 2 of the 4 total have been installed. The delay in the installation of the remaining 2 cameras really is just associated with approval of who those polls belong to, and getting the approval to put those on the remaining polls. We already, identification of a Raymore stolen auto assisted detectives with investigative leads, and what that allowed was for us to see that the vehicle was stolen on a certain date, but it remained in the area. So it allowed the detectives to develop those leads as a result of the stolen auto staying in the area. And then probably most importantly, the poll camera provided information to detectives which assisted in the identification of 3 persons and the filing of charges on 2 in an attempted robbery at Freedom Stop. We're able to file charges on those folks, and that information assisted the detectives in clearing robberies in Lee Summit and Edgerton, Kansas, that were all connected to what we were able to develop here with our poll camera as well. Between October 10th and November of 2021, 144,000 license plates were read by those poll cameras. But the most important thing for our citizens to remember is we're only using that information when we have an active criminal investigation. So we're not sitting and filtering through, 145,000 hits off of license plates. We're using that information when we have a specific time frame, a specific crime that we're looking at, where we think maybe the exit from the city would pass by one of those cameras. So I know folks were concerned about, what that information was used for, but during active criminal investigations as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions, just a brief overview, because I know people were anxious to hear about it.
Thank you, Chief. Good report. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, that is a great and very comprehensive report. Good to hear that it's finally working. I know it was off to a slow start. Any issue with the officers? Do they have to be trained on this system, or can any officer right now in the department jump in car 1 or 11 and utilize that to its full capability?
We do some training, but it is pretty idiot-proof, so thankfully.
All right. Well, glad to hear. And again, thank you for the report.
John.
Well, she didn't say completely idiot-proof.
Yeah, if you'd like to come out and ride.
Okay. Anything else you ever need, please let us know. I'd love to hear the fact that it's
Thank you, sir.
working.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Excellent. Yep. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Wilshire.
So is having 2 of the license plate readers, is that normal or average for a city of our size?
As I mentioned, there are certain thresholds that occur with organizations like HIDA, in order to be, to be able to access that database without having a sponsor agency. So yeah, that's about standard for a city of our size and growing, especially considering the amount of vehicular traffic that we get into our city, coming, in to shop or to visit, folks. Yeah, we have a lot more vehicular traffic, I think, even than, some other agencies of similar size.
Anyone else? Thanks, Chief. Like
Thanks,
I
sir.
said, great report.
Thank you.
Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Chief. Just a reminder to the council, we do have a work session next Monday night. 2 items currently on the agenda. Mr. Krass will be presenting the snow plan, and I will be presenting the finalization of what the council, I believe, came to consensus on as far as the questioning process when new candidates are on. That concludes staff reports this evening, sir.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Fearborn? All right. Moving right along to the consent agenda, we only have the one item on the consent agenda this evening, and that's the city council minutes for October the 25th. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve consent agenda item A, City Council minutes for October 25th, 2021.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I will second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstains? Motion carries 7 yes, 1 abstention. Now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3657 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3657 by title only, an ordinance amending the City Traffic Engineers Schedule 3, parking limited or prohibited, to establish no parking signs within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. If there aren't any questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3657, establishing no parking on Sunset Lane from Pine Street to Highway 58.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3657. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3663 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3663 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the East Brook at Creekmore third plat.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3663, East Brook at Creekmore, third final plat.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3663. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Okay, please have the second reading of Bill 3664 by title only.
Second reading of Bill 3664 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Stegmeyer Acres Lots 3 through 5 final plat.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve Bill 3664, replat of Stegmeyer Acres Lot 2.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3664. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3665 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3665 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing new ward boundaries.
Again, if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3665, new ward boundaries.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3665. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3666 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3666 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending a contract with CFS Engineers for Hawk Ridge Park improvements in the amount of $28,299 and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thanks, sir. Mayor, members of the council. Before you tonight is a budget amendment for our design services with CFS Engineers at Hawk Ridge Park. As you're aware, this contract is part of the 2020 GEO bond, no tax increase bond issue projects. We've listed here some things that have come up in discussions and things that we felt like we needed to have the information available to us and be ready to bid for those and just have that information ready to go. So we have submitted this budget amendment. This was before the Park Board and is recommended by the Park Board to the City Council. The listed items are in our staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. Any questions of Mr. Mustine? Thank you, sir. If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3666, budget amendment, Hawk Ridge Park Design Services.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3666. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3668 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3668 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with American Waste Services, LLC for the city facility trash and recycling services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Icky to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The item before the council this evening is an award of contract to American Waste Systems for all city facility trash and recycling services. This service includes regular trash service to 5 city locations and provides on-demand dumpster service for the Parks and Recreation and Public Works departments for larger projects. Gail Holzman with American Waste Systems is here with us this evening. If you have any questions, I also would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holzman, you have anything to add?
I'll do a quick commercial.
Oh, just step to the microphone, give us your name and address, sorry. Protocol, you know.
Gail Holzman, American Waste Systems, Inc., 11610 Grandview Road, Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to let y'all know that I just got, after 2 years, a transfer station permitted in Harrisonville. So I wanted you to be aware of that. We're working on getting that thing up off the ground. It's 2 months old. I just opened it last Monday to the public after a soft opening so we can get all our trailers and learn how to do it. We are open on Saturday from 7 till noon. That's something new. Nobody in the city has a public opening on Saturdays for the residents. So you might advertise that and let us know. And we're very honored if you'll allow us to continue to haul your trash.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Any questions of Mr. Holzman or staff? Yes, Ms. Abdelgawad.
Just a quick question for staff. I know we've been really happy with Constable for city trash. Curious why we're not looking at moving there. Nothing against what you guys have done. I think you're great. I'm just curious.
Constable, while they have done really well on the residential trash side, they also recognize that is where they do really well, and so they have not expanded into the commercial area, even though we have been exceedingly happy with them on the residential side.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll add quickly, too. I know on these bids it's lowest and best, and I'm glad to see the city, I know they always do, doing the research and picking the best bidder. I know it's not always the lowest bidder, but I'm confident we'll get good service, and we will be watching very closely, but look forward to having a good service from you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? There's nothing else. Have we done the motion? Oh, we haven't done the motion yet. Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3668, award of contract, city facility trash and recycling services.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3668. Now, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. That concludes our formal portion of the business for the council tonight. We'll now move on to public comments. If anyone in the public would like to address the council at this time, please state your name and address for the step forward. State your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If you'd like to continue, ma'am, you certainly have the opportunity here.
My name is Catherine Smedley again. I live at 128 North Crest Drive. I just feel like there has to be a better way to deal with this situation. I know that the police officers in the police department are just as frustrated as I am with this, but they're not living sleep deprived. My daughter and I are. My daughter's falling asleep at school, like I said. With the system the way it is now, it's almost like a cat and mouse game. If they don't catch them, if they don't hear the violation, there's nothing they can do. And as I stated earlier, there were 5 citations issued. Those were between August 2020 and February 2021. No citations have been issued by the police department since then. I had briefly mentioned Drayton Vogel had issued 2 letters of notice to the business owner, which actually is a corporation out of Arizona. It's not even someone that's local. And the contact that I ultimately ended up getting in touch with did contact the business, did send out notice to the tenants to quiet down at night, or they would be moved out of the business. They would not be allowed to rent there. The particular defendant that received citations for this was one person, Christopher Taylor. And when that finally went to court in September of this year, the prosecutor threw out 3 of the tickets, and he got a fine. Even though I kept being told by police officers, well, wait till it goes to court. Court's going to solve everything. Court doesn't solve everything. They continued doing it even though 5 citations had been issued. There has to be a better way to enforce this kind of noise with this kind of business, whether it be change city code so they can't work in those garages at night, don't let them be built behind homes, but that doesn't change the fact that they're currently already built behind my home. And even though, since I reached out to the company, because Drayton sent me those letters, I was able to find a Google contact, I still am being bothered by the noise at night because, like I said, there's a particular tenant in there that one of Raymore's police officers notified me that the muscle cars, so to speak, that I was seeing and hearing at night was a tenant that was building these race cars in that unit and then going into the city and driving in illegal street races in the city and then coming home. So when they go out for their street races, I hear 3 souped up muscle cars revving their engines up as they're leaving, and then they come back in staggered at different times of the night, revving those engines as well, racing back in and parking them in the garages, as well as majority of the guys that are working back there are driving big, loud diesel pickup trucks. You can't control how loud that kind of vehicle is, but you also put these places directly behind my home. The city approved this, and now there has to be a way that we can address it so that other people, as well as myself, don't be bothered by this. I just feel like there's got to be more that can be done. Something needs to change because there's so much frustration between myself and the police department because they're doing what they can, but they have to enforce it in a certain way. But that doesn't change the fact that this noise is still waking my daughter and I up at night.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one step forward, we'll move on to Mayor Council communication, and I will start with Mr. Townsend tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this evening.
Nothing, sir? Okay. Ms. Wilshire, sir?
I wanted to say welcome back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I believe that's it. No comment. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to say congratulations to the officer on the Bronze Award. It's fantastic. You guys are doing a great job, Chief. Those license plate readers, which we were so excited to get, obviously are doing the job, and that's a great thing to hear. Mr. Mustine, keep on going forward, pushing hard for the parks. You're doing a great job as usual. Fantastic. I know you're going to be doing some planning and building here in the winter for next spring, so good job, sir. Appreciate what you're doing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to say that I appreciate the report on the license cameras. I think that's definitely a good piece of technology that's going to help us. I wish we could, put signs not near the camera, but other places saying there are cameras checking out your license plates, so don't drive in our town if you're a criminal. But they'll figure it out eventually. The other thing is, I wanted to address Ms. Smedley's concerns because I have a neighbor that's been going on for 3 years, and we've been working with Officer Vogel as well, and possibly the officer that was before him as well. It may have been going on that long. But I have a neighbor that likes to do work on their vehicles in the middle of the night as well, and they love to speed up and down I live on a tiny little street, and I totally understand it's irritating. Every time this person leaves or they come home, I hear them. But the thing is most of the time, they're not breaking any laws. And just because on our street we have I mean, most of the time they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they come home and they leave, and they're not making a huge amount of noise. And one time I went and talked to the gentleman. I said, if you were just a little quieter, people wouldn't have any problems with you at all. If you'd just be civil and polite. And but it's one of those things. It does take sometimes longer than you would like, especially when it's in the middle of the night. But we have to follow the law, and I'm being patient. The people on my street, we have a former mayor on the street, we have other people, and just because you have people that maybe have more ears or more doesn't necessarily get you action faster. So if that's any consolation, we're taking care of everyone equally in the city as far as complaints. So hang in there and they'll get to you. And hopefully it's just got to be a situation where they are not paying attention when the police show up. And that's kind of how it is. So we'll keep working with you. Yeah.
No. I'm
Okay,
sorry. We're in the comment section for the council. Sorry.
Maybe that was inappropriate.
Yeah, it was, but that's okay. We'll move on.
I just want to be
I know you want to be polite. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should have said something when we did the consent agenda at the discussion, but I abstained because I was absent last meeting. But I did read the packet and I did watch the meeting. I didn't have good internet where I was at. Had good everything else, but not internet. Excuse me, I wanted to address, I was looking at the meetings and really have noticed that planning and zoning, a couple of meetings, in November 2nd meeting canceled, 21st there's no applications, but boy, excuse me, Mr. Carteret, it looks like you have a lot on your plate finishing out the year, and I would imagine that's going to overflow into 2022 as well. But I keep bringing it up, but it wasn't very long ago you were saying our inventory's down, the sky is falling, and now we're looking at our inventory as really a lot of options in Raymore. So look forward to seeing some of this stuff unfold and some dirt getting turned and some more folks getting to live here in Raymore. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have one thing this evening. A couple of important dates this week that a lot of people may not realize. Reggie, I believe Wednesday's, Mr. Fearborn, Wednesday? Is that the Marine Corps birthday? Hoorah. All right, there we go. And then Thursday is Veterans Day. And I think, especially given the timing of the death of General Powell and the withdrawal of forces from Afghanistan, it's certainly timely every year. But recent events, I think, should bring that day even more into focus than normal. The city will be having its celebration on Thursday. Is that correct, Mr. Fearborn? I apologize, will not be able to attend. Wednesday, I'm sorry. I will not be able to attend. I'll be out of town those 2 days on family business. But my thanks to everybody on the council that served, including my fellow airman, Mr. Berenson, as well as all of our residents here. We are a very veteran-heavy community due to the former base at Richards Gebauer and the people that served here, and a lot of them that made their homes here, as well as just people that have served over the years. And so, again, remember those people this week, show your appreciation, and that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was not going to have any comments, but because Mr. Holman brought it up, just a quick reminder for anyone watching, the Veterans Day ceremony will be Wednesday at Centerview at 4 o'clock. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Very good. So just inviting anyone who's interested in joining us for that event. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Holman, you mentioned this is a very veteran-heavy. You meant veteran-heavy and not heavy veterans, right? It's the spokesman for all heavy veterans. Good point there. Chief, thank you very much for your report tonight. There was a lot of great information in there, and I know we waited a long time, but some good news, and it looks like it is starting to work very well, and I'm glad we're having success with it. It kind of opens my eyes sitting here. I moved to this town, for the schools and the kind of small town feel and the lack of crime. And I know we enjoy a low crime rate, and our citizens very much feel very comfortable here, especially with our police department doing the work they do. But hearing this report, it reminds me that, we may feel safe here, but crime is going to find us. It found one of my neighbors. We had a car stolen in my neighborhood, and it's, you know, we have this false sense of security. I grew up on a farm. We didn't lock our house. We didn't lock our cars. We left keys in it. We don't do that now. But it did remind me that, you know, folks, we really need to be aware of our situation and our surroundings, and lock our homes and lock our cars and meet our neighbors and report things when you see them. So that's my little PSA there. Again, Chief, thanks for the report. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good job. Thank you, sir. And I really can't add much to what the other folks are saying. I hope you will join us for the Veterans Day celebration this Wednesday afternoon over at Centerview. And one item I did want to bring up, I happened to notice as I was going home the other night, I went out Sunset to Lucy Webb, headed home, and got to the crosswalk there at Memorial Park. And there's a young man standing there crossing from north to south, or excuse me, from south to north. And I'm being in that eastbound lane, I decided to go ahead and stop for him. And several cars in front of me hadn't stopped. So I got to the stop walk, and he really looked at me and gave me a second look like, are you really stopping? And I could see what his trepidation was. As he got to the center island, I sat there until he got across the street. The other cars coming in the other direction, there were, I counted 16 cars, nobody stopped. Several of them slowed because they were wondering what the hell I was doing, being stopped in the road. And that was about all I got out of it, but nobody took the clue to stop for a pedestrian. So when we do these traffic studies and we're looking into all these crosswalk issues that we've got going on, they really are meaningful for us, for our pedestrian safety in our community. And I really hope that something that can be done. And I know it's been brought up by the ward council members for that particular spot. Hopefully there's something we can get done. Just watching that and watching the other motorists not pay attention. It's marked as a crosswalk. It's signed there. It is, you're supposed to yield to pedestrians, but nobody did. I honest to God, I sat there for probably 5 minutes making the people behind me mad because I wasn't moving, yet there were cars passing in the other lane and kind of looking oddly at, why is that man stopped? There's a pedestrian standing there in the middle of the island. We really do need to do something about that. And I don't know what it is. Any kind of public address announcement, flashing lights, whatever we can do. It did really point out to me that some education needs to be done in our community, and people pay attention to pedestrians having the right-of-way. So I'll get off my soapbox there, and thank you, everyone, for your great comments this evening about staff. Great report, Chief. Appreciate you and everything that your people do. And if there's nothing else, I would ask for a motion to move into executive session.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we move into executive session to discuss personnel and litigation matters as authorized by revised Missouri statute, paragraph 610.021, paragraphs 1 and 3.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to move into executive session. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Will Scherzer?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a quorum. We will now move into executive session. Upon the completion of the executive session, we will return briefly to open session in order to adjourn. Thank you.